Well, hello, happy Tuesday, G5. Hope you're doing well. What you see in front of you is something called an isometric shape. And I know it would be difficult to draw. I would like you to try your best. I'm going to go back so you can see how I go about drawing this. You're never going to be asked to draw these. And so if it's a homework question, you don't have to draw it. What you do have to do is what we'll do with it. However, if you're like, well, I want to practice, first of all, I'd be looking at your book because your book's going to look a lot better than mine. But just kind of taking it back and looking at that same image that you would see in your book is, you just kind of have to build these. Now, again, I would do this a lot better if I had a piece of paper and a pencil and a ruler. But, this is kind of just going back in time of how I did it. So I first kind of drew this rectangle here. And notice how I kind of do it a little diagonal and all that. And then I came off of that with that other rectangle that you see. And then it's a matter of kind of cubing things out. Now, because there's 4, I can split that in half and then do the same over here. And then I'm just kind of building these blocks. I see that there's this row back here. And again, you're not required to, I would like you to draw it so we have something to look at in your notes, but then that'd be perfect. And again, this is just something you grow with. And again, I'm growing with it on the iPad because it's a lot more difficult, to draw with, even though I have the Apple Pencil, which I told you about earlier on. But that's that, Is it perfect? No. Would I do better with a ruler in hand? I would. But I don't want you to think that this is the goal. What our goal is to take this isometric view and turn it into what's called a multi-view. And with our multi-view, so you're going to be looking at a picture maybe in your homework or on a test. And what I want you to do is you're going to draw what we call the top view. You're going to draw the front view. And you're going to draw the side view of this. And so you kind of have to imagine you kind of standing. So a top view would be you're up at the top. You're like a Superman. I'll draw Superman a little bit later, but you're looking down on this thing. And if you were looking down on this thing, essentially what that top view would be you'd see that and 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 that, and you'd end up drawing what we would call a 4x4. And that would be your top view of this. That's a multi-view. Now, from the front, so again, that would be like, let's say I'm a little person and I'm walking up to this figure and I'm looking at it. These are my eye viewpoints, right? What would I see? Well, I'd see this and this. I'd see this row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'd see that guy. So the front view of this would be simply something that looks like this, right? I've got that bottom 4 block and then just a 1 over here and 1 over here. And that's what we call the front view. I wouldn't see depth, like you don't think about depth here, just that straight up blocks. Now the sides would be, okay, what if there was a little person over here and he's looking at this isometric shape? He'd see that and that, and he'd see that and that and that and that and that and that, but it would all be very flat. And that's what we're doing. We're creating 2-dimensional views of this 3-dimensional object. And so the side would just be basically a 2x4, right? And that's how this works. And again, it's something that we kind of grow in, being able to see things spatially. Hopefully you can grow in this. And we're going to look at another one. And then we're going to also discuss nets. So let's look at this next shape. This is the isometric drawing of it. And again, if you want me to take it back, well, you should. If you're looking in your book, you'll see that I'm attempting to draw this shape. And I do go at it in a certain way. So just taking this back. This is what I did first, is this kind of block here. I created that. And then that's my two layers there. And then I've got this other little block out in the front. Again, it's not perfect, and I do it much better on paper. And maybe you've got paper and you got a ruler. I don't want you to worry about the isometric. I want you to be able to look at them, though, and create the multi-views, a top, a front, and a side. That's our focus of the day. So again, let's say I was Superman. Here I am in my cape, and I'm flying, and I'm looking directly down on that. What would Superman see? Well, he'd see this, he'd see that, and that, and that. And again, with no flat, like all flat, he'd see this 3x3, or this 3, 1, 2, 3, and then to the left of the top one, he'd see just a little thing like that. That would be the top view. Now, the front view, again, would be the little man looking at it here, right? And what would he see as his eyes look out? With no depth at all, he'd see a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. Just simply a 2 by 3, because he's not seeing any depth in these multi-views. He's just seeing that 2 by 3. The side, again, would be a person looking here and his eyes looking towards it like that. So what would he see? He'd see this piece, he'd see that piece, and that's all he'd see. And so that would just be this like twosie and then a onesie, and that would be the side view. And again, is this super crucial to your math success as you move on to No, not really. It's something that Saxon likes to engage in, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not heavily assessed either. But again, you will get these questions in your homework, and I want you to feel successful in your homework. Let's now talk about nets. Now, we have talked a little bit about nets. Nets are also kind of two-dimensional views of a three-dimensional object. So we're going to draw a rectangular prism that ultimately is going to look like this. I'm going really quick, but I'll take us back. So that's a rectangular prism that I can kind of see through the walls. So, oops, I'm taking it back. So what did I do first? I first started with just a straight up rectangle. And then I came off of these, I'm creating vertices, if you will, in that sort of fashion. Notice how all those little line segments I just drew, they're parallel, they're congruent, and then I connect and I connect. Now, if I'm Superman and I can see through this, then this would be that dotted kind of boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Again, this takes practice, but you should practice. If it doesn't look good, you should try again. So what is a net? Well, I think we've talked about it before, but I'm going to focus first on this bottom. Like that would be the bottom of it, right? And what is it? Well, it's just a straight up rectangle, right? And so I draw a rectangle. Now I'm going to focus on this one, the one that's facing me. And that would be to the left of the rectangle that I drew, right? If I flattened out that piece. Like have you ever flattened out a box? Kind of that's what we're thinking about. Now I'm going to focus on this guy here, in blue. So that's going to be to the right of my green piece, right? Green piece. And then I'm going to focus on this piece, which is a square, and this piece. And where would those fit? Well, one would be on the top and one would be on the bottom. Now, as I think I've mentioned before, this isn't truly a net. When we do our nets, basically we have these like kind of fold lines. And so we have the lines that we would cut out of, say, cardboard, boom, boom, boom. But these dashed lines, those are where we would fold that piece. And again, if we drew this, if we cut this out and we drew it, oh, I'm missing a piece. Whoops. So I've got one, I'm going to have to go live here. So if you think about it, I've got my bottom and I've got this left one and I've got this right one. I forgot about the top. So I would actually need one more piece here and I would need this to be dashed. I kind of messed this up. I'm so sorry. So this would be dashed right here, boop, boop, boop. And then I'd have one more congruent rectangle. And there's my net. Oh, I'm so glad I caught that. That's a good net. Let's do another net for a more interesting shape. Can you tell me what this shape is? Okay, go ahead, Susie Q. That's a cylinder. Yeah, you're right. That is straight up a cylinder. Now, if we were Superman and we could look through it, then we'd see this kind of like bottom here, that bottom, what we call a base, yeah? Both of our bases are circular. So cylinders nets are kind of interesting. And again, this is so much better when you're in class and I could show you like a soup can. But I want you to imagine like if I cut right here, I popped off the top and I popped off the bottom and I cut there. And then I flattened that out. What would it look like? Well, essentially, if I popped off that top and popped off the bottom and I cut right here, boom, 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 and I flatten that out, that would just be a straight up rectangle, people. Can you visualize that? Then I'd have to figure my base. So that guy, well, that's just a circle, right? So that circle would go there, but I've got another circle right there, boop, 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 and that circle would go there. And that's the net of this shape. That's the net of a cylinder. Yeah, kind of cool, huh? Now, again, you might go, well, what about the dashed lines? There are no dashed lines because everything's kind of folding at a place. So what you're looking at to the right there is a cylinder. I went over it in black. And those are our little focus on isometric shapes, which you're never expected to draw, but you can practice drawing them. What you are expected to do is the multi-views, the top, front, and side. You're also expected to kind of start to come to understand nets. Hope you're doing well. This is under 10 minutes. That makes me happy. We do test tomorrow. Goodbye. And we do have homework, HW101.